alone by myself for days on end. However, I'm not. Not truly. A room is never really empty, just as we are never really alone. There are always things, tangible or not, that surround us, even in such a great time like quarantine. And when there's nothing, there remains time. A second, although not the shortest interval of time, it is used the most to describe a short interval of time. Even for intervals shorter than a second, we often say just a fraction of a second, just over or under a second, just a few seconds. We have lived through millions upon millions of seconds, yet I recall very little memories tied to such a small unit of time, a second. Is 1 second really too small to hold something so valuable as a memory? Is 1 second really too small to share? Too small to be useful? Time is money. Time is the most valuable thing a person can spend. The weight of my hour doesn't match that of a high schooler who would sell their hour for minimum wage at a fast food restaurant, but that's to be expected. For as we grow older and wiser, the value of our hours increase, and we go from trading time to investing it. My mornings now aren't what they used to be. I've become so disconnected from the routine that used to carry me through the day. A morning during quarantine isn't repeated. Nothing's the same. What was once dedicated to sleep has lost its meaning through quarantine. The aimless days have dislodged my circadian rhythm, leaving nights that I missed the chance to sleep during. It's been 23 nights and 23 mornings since quarantine began. But how many days? Before the time of isolation, my day was measured as the completion of my routine that exists between the morning and the night. Now I wonder whether we perceive days to be a set amount of hours, a routine we complete, or the time between sleep. Weeks are commonly measured as productive or unproductive, and what that means depends on the person. However, through quarantine, I've been struggling to differentiate between these titles. If I asked you what a day is, you might say 24 hours. But if I asked you what a month is, you might struggle to define it. That's because the month's time is fluid. It's constantly changing. And just like a month, quarantine isn't a set unit of time either. You can only run halfway into the woods. Because after that, you're running out of the woods. It's been 23 nights since quarantine began. But has it just begun? Or are we in quarantine? Or are we exiting quarantine? Just like the woods, it's not easy to tell whether we're in it, out of it, beginning it, and so on. We measured our worth in hours, but we measure our life in years. Years are large enough to hold memories, large enough to be shared with others, large enough to be useful, and large enough to describe our lives. Quarantine has been with me now for 1/40 of my life. Nobody knew how long it would last, whether it would be one day, a few days, 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, a couple of months, a year, or longer. And it's been all of those so far, and it continues on with time. Time is a useful tool, but it only serves to describe, not define our lives. If you had one of each of these times left, what would you do? I wouldn't want to be